Identity is a difficult concept to grasp. The answer to who am I is probably one of the most difficult questions you would come across. But a lot of people actually define themselves by the ideas or the opinions that they have, at least currently. Like what defines me now is the ideas that I have now. Of course, we can all agree that the opinions that we have change over time. We evolve, we add stuff to our knowledge, and we try and be more informed than we were in the past moment. But we would still like to believe that our opinions define us. But isn't that two contradictory statements? Us believing that our opinions define us, and at the same time, us believing that our ideas change over time. How can we be the same if our opinions change with time? Let's discuss this in today's episode of Perfectly Average. So, just for context and to understand why we're talking about this today, picture somebody who you can think has at least one fundamental value or principle that they have followed throughout their lifetime. That one thing that has not changed in them over the years, even though most of the traits or characteristics about them have changed. It could be something as fundamental as a religious thing, or it could be something very trivial, such as a football club that they support. Now, if you were to actually ask questions from them about those things, you would see that they wouldn't react and feel personally attacked had you asked questions about any other aspect of their personality. But if you were to ask questions or contradict the fundamental concepts that they believe in, they would feel personally attacked and would probably react in a more aggressive way than they would normally. Now, why is that? Why do they react so irrationally when they can actually talk it out properly without getting aggressive? That's because there's something called as the formation of identity that happens in our adolescent years. Now, what is identity is a pretty philosophical question, and I don't want to get into that. But fundamentally, identity is just what separates you from the crowd. Like, for example, if you in your adolescence you read a lot of books, then you call yourself a bookworm. If you participated in a lot of sporting activities, then you call yourself an athlete. And that's how you define your identity, at least at that point. Now, that's good, and it's what happens with everybody. But if you get fixated on that one thing, you've never worked on anything, you've never explored the ample opportunities that you have, you've never tried to be something else, then you get fixated on that one thing that you are. And if that thing is taken away from you, that is what is known as identity crisis. Let me give you an example. If you see a lot of celebrities, superstars, athletes, popular people get really reclusive and they get depressed when any damage to their stardom is done. Like they get really angry, they grow out of shape, they are not very socially interactive once they get out that phase of being really popular and really awesome all the time. That's because they've identified themselves as the guy who has six pack abs, or the lady who has the most beautiful eyes in the world, or the person that runs marathons. And if that is taken away from them, then they are left with nothing. Now, what really smart people and successful people, in fact, do is that they don't associate themselves with just one thing. That's why they have hobbies. They have something to hold on to, even if something else goes haywire. A politician like Winston Churchill would still have been a butterfly enthusiast even if the Second World War had not gone in his favor. That's why if you ever see the bios or profiles of very successful people, you would see that they have multiple designations under their name. It's understandable why people hold on to things. It's because it gives them value and purpose in life. But what we don't understand is that there's no such rule which says that I can only be one thing in my life. I can hold on to only one principle or fundamental value in my life. That's why if you see that religious people, it could be spiritually religious or they're religious to their work or in any context, don't really have much else going on in their lives. That's why they're putting their heart and soul into the work they're doing because they have nothing else to hold on to. This might be a little controversial, but if you actually observe any cult, any group, any radical organization, then you would see that it consists of people that really don't have much going on in their lives. Like, for example, any group that vandalizes properties or destroys public places mostly consists of young adults that are unemployed. So people attach themselves to the choices that they make. And these choices are basically just liking or not liking something. Now, this might be not true for everybody, but I have an observation here. I think that most of the things that we like or dislike are simply a result of a feedback loop. Now, I'll just give you an example about this. For example, at very early ages of my life, let's say at 5 years old, I ate some vegetable that was not really properly cooked by my mother, and I didn't like it when I first tried it, right? Now, from that day onwards, whenever I saw that vegetable, I was reminded of the day then when I first ate it, and every time I saw it, I said it out loud to other people also and to myself also that I don't like it, even though I've only actually eaten it once. And so this feedback loop is basically self-sustaining because it tells you what you already know and you are not trying to actually modify that in any way. Maybe it is actually tasty had it been cooked properly, but you would never know because you've never tried it. And you, why are you not trying it? Because you know that it's not really good. So a real choice of liking or disliking something would be when you have tried it multiple times and at every occasion you've either liked it or disliked it. And that would be a proper, well informed choice of yours. And that's very evident in today's culture. You would see people having a firm beliefs about subjects that they've not really spent time on. People don't really like EDMs or pop music nowadays just because they maybe heard one song on somebody else's phone and they didn't really groove with it. Or people have preferences in cuisines even though they've only tried that cuisine once. They claim themselves as non-athletic or not being good at any sport just because nobody actually passed them a ball in their childhood. And that's the difference between basically knowing and believing. So, what all of us need to understand is that the choices that we make are temporary. They're made in the present moment, and maybe they are good today, but they won't be uh, 10 years from now. A choice changes over time because we become more and more informed about that. And it's good if we change and alter our choices because it shows that we're growing as an individual. Like, for example, any sane Hindu person would curb and never glorify sati in today's time, even though it was a ritual that was glorified in the past by a lot of Hindus. This shows that we can accept any fundamental change in our beliefs. If we just have to be open minded and humble enough to accept that. A lot of people actually think that it is hypocritical for them to change the choices that they made in the past, but that is actually a sign of a coward, not a strong person. If you're not actually accepting any faults in your choices that you made previously, then you're basically saying that you have always been perfect and you've never made a wrong decision. And that to me will never uh, culminate in a fruitful society. What is hypocritical is that those people actually change in so many other ways, but some things that they feel are untouchable or holy, and they never try and introspect whether those choices that they've made are truly that untouchable. An interesting thing can be observed with these people that hold some value close to their heart is that they align themselves to the bias that the belief comes with. Like, for example, a Messi fan who has not really never watched football would start cursing Ronaldo and saying that Messi is the best player in the world, uh, just because he feels like being a Messi fan entails you to be not nice to Ronaldo. And that's just fundamentally it. A lot of the people that are aggressive towards other groups or other ideas are just basically defending the bias that the belief comes with, and they're not ready to accept any alteration in the biases, even though the biases might be unfair. And that's all we need to do to achieve a harmonious society, to be open minded and accepting enough. Because, as they say, the best constitutions are the ones with the most amendments. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.